Welcome into the Thunder basketball universe presented by Summer Moon Coffee, which is purely fueling our energy here today. I kid you not, because we are just returning from Minnesota at the wee early hours of this morning. The Thunder's plane landed around 3:30 a.m. to a raucous crowd of Thunder fans. Shout out to you if you were at the airport last night, because you're a true one. You're a real one, because it was really, really late, and for good reason, because the Thunder, well, they got the job done in Game 4 after falling in Game 3, and now return back to Oklahoma City up 3-1 in these Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, almost as unbelievable as the back and forth incredible shot making of that Game 4 was the fact that I could hear people screaming from the airport behind the fence there before I even got off of the plane. You all braved bad weather, it was rained and stormy, and so big kudos to you all, and massive kudos to the Thunder as a team for handling what they needed to do, getting a very tough, hard-fought win on the road. They had an answer every single time that Minnesota challenged them, and really, they demonstrated how every single game in a playoff series is its own entity. I mean,
legitimately, you took the words right out of my mouth, because up to this point, one team has had it and one team hasn't had it. That was been just kind of the theme of this series, whether it was Oklahoma City having it in the first two games, Minnesota not quite having it, or flip the script completely in Game 3 and Oklahoma City did not have anything at all, Minnesota firing on all cylinders. And what we saw in Game 4, well, both teams were playing at their highest level. Both teams had it. They were going hard, and it was such a great game. Nerve-wracking. It's a little stressful. I understand that, but a great basketball game, and we'll get into all of that, all the details, everything that you might have missed from those two games out in Minneapolis. But first, let's dive in to our Summer Moon Stats of the Week.
Mine is 13 of 20.
Okay, I have two guesses.
Okay.
I'm going to go with my good guess first.
Well, that's ideal. Yeah.
Go with my good guess first. Is this Shai's shooting numbers from the game?
It is not Shai's shooting numbers from the game. He was 13 of 30, actually.
30?
Yeah.
Okay, I gave him, my bad. Okay, so the second guess is our shooting numbers in the fourth?
The Thunder shooting numbers in the fourth quarter. Yep.
Okay.
13 of 20 shooting, 65% the Thunder shot in the fourth quarter. That's typically when it's hardest to score in playoff basketball. But the Thunder and the Timberwolves, they went back and forth. Minnesota actually won the fourth quarter by 3 points because their shot making was off the charts as well. But the Thunder did what it needed to do, got the shots that it needed to, got to the spots on the floor, and then made some heads-up timely plays as well. And that's sometimes what this comes down to in playoff basketball. I mean, the Thunder's had the best defense in the NBA all season long, the best defense in the playoffs. But sometimes it comes down to your offense needing to win games for you too. I thought this was such a great dichotomy because games 1 and 2, it was the Thunder's defense that won them those games. The Thunder's offense won Game 4, and you got to be able to win a lot of different ways in the playoffs.
Yeah, one thing that we talked about in our post-game, our Thunder playoff post-game stream, tune into those if you're not doing that. By the way, a lot of great information. One thing that Royce Young said that is still stuck with me, what is it? 12 hours later after
just barely
it just happened. He said that some games are a game of runs. Well, this game was a game of answers, because for everything that Minnesota threw at the Thunder, especially in the fourth quarter, Oklahoma City had an answer. They had something right back at them, whether it was a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander bucket. He was absolutely precise, surgical in that mid-range, knocking down incredible buckets, doing MVP things. And then you got a guy like Jaylen Williams, J-Dub, career high 6 threes in that game, had a couple of big ones down the stretch, big ones in the first quarter as well. And then all these other guys really contributing well. Chet Holmgren with some massive putback dunks in this one as well. And so the ability for Oklahoma City to respond with offense in those moments, very, very key, because while you were able to keep Anthony Edwards relatively quiet in this game, the Minnesota role players were just completely keeping the Timberwolves afloat. Guys like Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Shai's cousin, who was electric in this game, just really buoying that offense to keep them within arm's distance the whole game.
Yeah, 12 made threes off the bench for Minnesota, which is just unheard of to have that level of production off the bench from behind the three-point line. And OKC was able to just hang in there, hold steady, and from the 7-11 mark of the first quarter till the end of the game, the Thunder either had the lead or the game was tied. Never gave up the lead completely, but the game was basically played in a 2 to 3 possession window from that midway point of the first quarter through the end of the game.
Yeah.
The Thunder never allowed Minnesota to deliver enough of a punch, a big enough run to flip the momentum of the game completely, to allow Minnesota to get back in control. And to some degree, that would seem like the Thunder was like playing the scoreboard and like being very cognizant of what was going on the scoreboard to try to not allow Minnesota to make that type of run. But to me, it just felt like the Thunder was so present in the moment and playing with complete conviction in what it needed to do on each possession, that's actually what allowed them to prevent Minnesota from making any sort of knockout blow.
Oh, yeah. These guys were completely locked in. And to your point, I mean, this was such a close game. The margin for error is so low in a 1 to 2 possession game like that. On the road in game 4. I mean, it could really swing in any direction just given the momentum of how the game is going at that point. And for Minnesota, 6 threes in the fourth quarter. Yeah. They made 6 threes. They were 6 of 13. They were 8 of 15 from twos. And then you look on the Thunder side of things, they're 10 of 14 from twos. They're 3 of 6 from 3. Like, both of these teams just so
they
efficient.
Were aces, yeah.
Yeah, everyone is just throwing down ace after ace, and the Thunder with just enough down the stretch to outlast Minnesota. And I think a key to this is my stat of the week.
Hey, there you go.
You see that? You see that?
Nice transition, Paris.
Appreciate
You're a pro.
That. My stat is 11.
And that is the number of field goal attempts that the Thunder, more field goal attempts that the Thunder had than the Timberwolves had.
Great job, Gallo. I thought I was going to get you on this one, but you were, even on 2 hours of sleep, still super sharp. And you're absolutely right. This is the field goal differential in favor of Oklahoma City in this game. A couple of factors that go into winning the possession battle. And we talked about this throughout the regular season. It's just a numbers game, right? Getting more shots on goal than your opponent. And this is where it matters, because in a game like this where both teams are just shooting the crap out of the ball, I mean, I'm surprised the lights were still on inside of Target Center with how well those teams were shooting. Sometimes you just got to get more opportunities, and the Thunder did just that. Whether it was second chance points, the Thunder had a lot of great offensive boards in this game. They were, I believe, 3 for 3 on second chance points in the fourth quarter of this game. Yep, 3 for 3 on second chance points in the fourth quarter. Or it was the defense getting those steals and scoring out in transition. The Thunder's defense, for the majority of this game, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but for the majority of this game, felt much more like the Thunder that we've seen all season long. Ultra disruptive, great pressure, and getting a hand on a ball, tipping it out of bounds, or getting those steals and getting on the run.
Yeah, and in addition to all of those great things that the Thunder was doing, the Timberwolves actually, in many regards, did some of those things better. Yep. Right? They actually outscored the Thunder in the paint, on second chance points, on fast break points, on points off turnovers, which is extremely rare. But to your point, the Thunder just got more shots up. They were able to make 5 more field goals in this game. Mm-hmm. So some of those ancillary stuff that can get washed away when you just simply get more shots up and you create more turnovers, you get those offensive rebounds. It was 19 offensive rebounds for OKC and 23 turnovers forced. And so when you're generating that many additional possessions, it just can buoy your offense enough to be able to prevent the other team from getting a shot.
Sometimes it is literally just that simple. Get more shots on goal than your opponent so that it kind of protects you in moments like this where both teams are just shooting so incredibly well. If you got more looks, you got a better chance of getting more points. It's basketball.
It was really like with the turnovers, it was defense was the Thunder's best offense. And with the offensive rebounds, offense was the Thunder's best defense. And so it was definitely a very strange game. And that's what makes it even more impressive that cutting through all of the noise, cutting through the hostile environment, cutting through, all the distractions and the plays that went haywire. I mean, I could count on, a hand and a half the number of fast breaks that the Thunder had opportunities for and then ended up turning the ball over. I mean, you could be looking at those possessions and going, oh man, like we just shot ourselves in the foot there. I never saw a moment of the Thunder kind of feeling sorry for themselves or looking around saying, dang, I messed that up. It was just total presence in the moment.
that's been the Thunder's superpower the entirety of this postseason because it's required. Every game is its own entity. Every game has its own identity, own storyline. And so if you're expecting to carry things over from game to game, or you're expecting some rhythm or momentum to carry you into a new game, it's not going to happen. Newsflash, not going to happen. Yeah. And this series is a perfect example of that. Let's talk about some of the bigger themes from Game 4. Headliner, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the league's most valuable player, 40, 10, and 9. 1 rebound away from a triple-double.
And the assists were probably the most impressive part of it. The scoring, of course, is great, 40 points. He certainly thought that he could be more efficient, I think. Just the number of shots that didn't drop for him that normally would. But the 10 assists were so vital in this game. The way that he played out of, double teams and excess pressure that Minnesota was bringing to him. And then just some of the Shai magic that you see from time to time. I mean, late in the fourth quarter, he slips and falls, somehow maintains the pivot foot and sneaks the ball through Jaden McDaniels' legs out to the perimeter for J-Dub to knock down. I believe that was his 6th and final 3 of the game for J-Dub there on the left wing. That was a massive shot in this game. And you look at so many of these different possessions, the spray outs by Shai to find teammates. I mean, the Thunder in a 2-point game, they needed every single one of them. And Shai, for 40 minutes in that game last night, delivered.
I think the assists really tell a big story for Shai's game because the 40 points, it's loud. But it's what we see from Shai all the time. Like, newsflash, the guy was averaging 32 points per game this season, and we've seen him have multiple 40-point games. He led the NBA in 40-point games this season.
Yeah, he had 13 of them. So
Exactly. So this is what we anticipate from Shai, kind of from night to night. And don't get me wrong, he was exceptionally surgical, getting to his spots, getting to the mid-range. He hit some massive buckets in this game, and some that you're like, that is MVP caliber stuff. I don't know how you stop that. But what added to this, to your point, the assists, and some of them were loud, right? Like him falling and kind of losing the ball, somehow spitting it out to J-Dub. But some of them were the most simple pass where the Timberwolves are just so honed in, locked in. You've got 10 eyeballs on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander having the ball out up top. He makes one pass to Cason Wallace, and it's a wide open 3.
Yeah, just making the simple play. Mark Daigneault talks all the time about how the best passers in the league, they are capable of the highlight plays, but what they're excellent at is making the quick decision, making the right pass, making the simple pass. Shai did that time and time again. The number of times that they ran that little pick and pop with him and Chet, and Shai was able to flip that ball back over the top. And whether Chet took that shot or attacked off the closeout or just made the next play, that was getting the Thunder into an advantage situation against a Minnesota defense that is so challenging to try to deal with. Here's one other layer of Shai's game last night that I really want to talk about, which is he actually really impacted the Thunder's offensive rebounding numbers. And I know you might be wondering, like, how is that possible? Shai, time and time again, every opportunity that he had when Rudy Gobert was on the floor, Shai was manufacturing a switch to get Gobert out onto him. And Gobert, 7'1" center, massive rebounder, massive shot blocker, great defender. That was not like a plum matchup for Shai to be trying to draw. But what it did was it pulled Gobert away from the rim so that some teammates like Chet, who we saw a bunch of times, were able to attack on a second side attack, get all the way to the bucket and finish. Or when Shai took the shot or another guy took the shot, it was a bit too long of a recovery for Gobert to get back into prime position for a defensive rebound. So those 19 offensive rebounds, a lot of that has to do with the play before the play. And Shai manufacturing the alignment on the floor that he's looking for.
The chess match of this game was elite. And for that sort of example, perfect example of, a guy getting a matchup that might not be like the most, I mean, we're talking about a former defensive player of the year. He's seeking out a defensive player of the year to get a matchup, but it works out for Oklahoma City in the long run, in the backside of that same play, being able to pick up those second chance points. And you mentioned Chet Holmgren. I want to talk about his game too, because he's a guy who finished with 21 points, 7 boards. He had 3 blocks in this game. An awesome night for Chet, which is really fun to see, given the fact that I'm pretty sure he had like a whole section that was just like, his friends and family, the Minnesota native really showed out in Game 4.
Yeah, former teammates there from his high school days, some guys that are currently in the NBA as well. But Chet, the massive block that he had late against Jaden McDaniels at the rim. McDaniels, huge. One of the most athletic players in the NBA in terms of springiness, length, the ability to get the ball up on the rim and above it. And for Chet to be able to have the timing.
Yeah.
And you just remember, it wasn't even 8-9 months ago that Chet broke his hip.
He couldn't walk.
Right. For months, the guy was not able to do hardly anything. And for him to have not just the physical work ethic, but the mental resolve and toughness to get him to this point, all while actually getting better as a basketball player, is absolutely astounding. I remember, Sam Presti saying his mental approach is the real deal. And when Chet was drafted, and we have seen that in spades here over the last couple of years. And Paris, you would know better than me just breaking down his game, but I think about him in these situations now compared to where he was 18 months ago or 2 years ago, and the ball handling seems tighter, the shot making, the timing, the follow through, everything on the shot seems better as well, and the way that he's been able to hone his craft despite dealing with what he's had to deal with. And be in this position where stuff's not really getting run for him. He's just out there running around, as Shai would say. What are you seeing on that front?
He's a basketball junkie. Yeah. Some guys, they get better like that because of how much time they put in, not just on the court. We know this about Chet. He's a hard worker, but the man just loves basketball. He's watching film all the time. Most times when we see him, he's carrying a basketball. Just like... media availability, you name it, just walking around, he's got a basketball with him. He has an insatiable hunger for learning the game, getting better. He loves the process of becoming a great player. And when you have all of that, you see this sort of rapid and quick compounding improvement over a very relatively short period of time for such a young player like Chet. You see this kind of, I want to say, like week by week improvement where something that maybe he didn't feel the most confident in, or maybe was a little loose in 1 week, the next week he nailed it, got it down, and it's much tighter, and he's attacking it much more confidently. And you only get that when you have a guy that's as ironclad mentally as Shai is, but also just has that hunger and that drive to just be great, and is also surrounded by some really good players too, because Shai also shares that as well.
Yeah, the spin move in the middle of the floor is the play that really stands out to me as something that, like, when he came into the league, he was trying that. It was something that he was able to do at lower levels of his career, and it wasn't quite working for him in the first few times that he was working on that. And he definitely, got back to work on that, and that spin, the timing of it, the way that he's using his body, the way that he's shielding the ball, the way that he's keeping it tight and having the instinct for when somebody might be crashing down on him. All of that is so much better. I love what you said about him always having the basketball in his hands.
Always.
It reminded me of something that I don't even think I registered until right now in this moment, but you were getting ready to be up on stage at Shai's MVP press conference announcement. And Thunder players are kind of just hanging around. This is on the floor at the Thunder Ion. Yeah. They had set up a stage. There was a bunch of chairs on, covering up one or two of the courts. Chet went and grabbed a basketball and started shooting on the hoops while everybody else is like around. It's kind of quiet, and he's just like, just getting some shots up, just messing. He like can't not touch the ball. I just thought that moment, it just hit me right now. Like, of course, it was Chet who went and grabbed a ball and started messing around while the whole place is silent. Everybody's getting ready to go sit down for a press conference.
There's an entire stage and like LED screen. There's like 17 cameras set up, taking up half the court. Yeah. And Chet's like, oh, a basketball? Sure. Why not?
Yeah, I got to touch it.
Got to take advantage of this moment. But that's what you get with Chet, and with a guy that is just so I keep saying like hungry, because I think that's the perfect way to describe it. He just loves the game, wants to get better, and wants to be great, and is firmly on that path right now. And it's really exciting because there's still such a long runway ahead of him at such a young age right now. Yeah,
a voracious appetite. And I think that flows perfectly into Jaylen Williams, who we saw have 34 points in the game. We talked about his 3-point shooting earlier, but again, we just continue to see that guy. He's been named an All-Star, All-Defensive Team, All-NBA. I mean, this is a player who has one of the most challenging jobs in the NBA.
Yep.
To be a lockdown wing defender who has to defend 4, sometimes 5 positions in a night, and be a primary offensive engine for significant portions of a game. And his motor just never stops, not just within the lines of the game, but his motor and the fire that he plays with, and that he prepares with.
Yeah.
It's unending.
I love the start that J-Dub got out to in this game. It was really cool to see the force that he was playing with offensively. Had 13 points in the first quarter of this game, and it just felt like his first 3 buckets were just like laser, like just great shots, knocked him down, and you could tell that rhythm started to build pretty early.
Yeah, no hesitation from him. He got to his spots, and we also saw an example of the Thunder having an intentional approach at the beginning of the season, and it coming to fruition by the end of the season. In training camp, Mark Daigneault said very plainly there were a couple guys that he really wanted to increase their volume at the three-point line.
Yep.
One was Aaron Wiggins, which we saw pay dividends over the course of the season. And the other was Jaylen Williams. And in last night's game, with the way that Minnesota was trying to pack the paint, with the way that they're trying to take away Shai and J-Dub's drives, those 3-point shots were available. Jaylen Williams took 9 threes, made 6 of them. If not for the intentional approach, the foresight of what would be required from Jaylen Williams over the course of a season and into the postseason, and then Dub's consistent work to stretch his game, his lack of fear that working on his game in the game might net out negatively for his own personal accolades. All of that, he just deserves so much credit for that, because his investment was rewarded in a massive game. And, oh, by the way, all the positive accolades came with it too.
I mean, you got the best of both worlds, and that's what happens when you're willing to take a step back to maybe take 2 steps forward as a player. And we heard this from Coach Daigneault a lot, that, the Thunder's willing to deal with some minor trade-offs that lead to bigger payoffs down the road. And J-Dub, with just consistent investment and development and leaning into the process, making sure that you're bought in. It'd be really easy ego-wise to be like, I don't want my 3-point percentage to go down.
Yeah.
Like I'm shooting the ball pretty well. I'm known to be an efficient player, and so I was like, I'll just keep getting to the rack, or just keep
stay with my normal
stick
stuff.
with my normal stuff. But the lack of arrogance to just do, the humility to just do what is best for the team overall, and work to expand your game, even if it means you might fail a few times throughout the season, the regular season, only for it to pay off down the road. Great stuff from J-Dub.
And that's a growth mindset, and it's a hallmark of what the Thunder wants to be about too. I think that folds in nicely with kind of the last major portion of what we wanted to talk about today, which is the Thunder's mentality here, up 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals. They still have a growth mentality. We talked to Mark Daigneault today at practice about the way that the Thunder learned from that 96-hour stretch of time in Minnesota.
Yep.
Obviously, 2 drastically different games, different outcomes, and there was some consistency in how the Thunder handled it all, approached it all, and handled that 42-point loss going into a 2-point win. But I think that there's maybe some notes from what we see on the individual level from the guys that we were just talking about, from Shai and Chet and J-Dub, that we're seeing on a big picture scale with the team.
The biggest thing for me, and after Game 3, obviously, there's a big loss for Oklahoma City, losing by 40 points. And it was just an uncharacteristic game, right? Like, just defensively, offensively, the Thunder just did not have it. And after the game, the Thunder, it's all about getting back to 0-0, having the same consistent approach. And what we heard from Alex Caruso at practice was, these guys are super level-headed, super consistent, not, overreacting to anything. And they have this game in Game 4, an excellent shooting night, awesome execution late game, all of these great elements that you hit on. And it would be natural to think, wow, the Thunder responded really well to that massive loss in Game 3. And Coach Daigneault was asked post-game in Game 4, what did you learn about your team in this 48-hour window where you lose dramatically in Game 3 and then have this resounding response in Game 4? And he said, I learned absolutely nothing. I learned absolutely nothing. And this was a compliment to the Thunder's approach and how they approach the days in between games. They have such a high baseline. We've talked about this before. They have such a high baseline. Win or lose, get back to that baseline. And that baseline consistently will carry you into every game the way you need to go into every game. And the Thunder able to get back to that baseline after game 3. And after that emotional, highly energized game 4, guess what? They're going to get back to that exact same baseline going into game 5.
And this is all part of the Thunder's approach of trying to be an uncommon team. Their average age is still 24 and a half or something like
Crazy.
that. And so, OKC is not afraid to do some firsts, right? Losing by 42 points is doesn't happen terribly often. But what we saw last night is, Minnesota became the first team in playoff history to shoot 50% from the field and make 18 threes and lose a game. Previous teams were 55-0.
Yep.
And so the Thunder has a recognition that, hey, there's no script to any of this. The only script that we need to follow is controlling what we can control.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this Thunder team has done. That mature attitude and approach is what will hopefully carry it into game 5 as well.
So don't be surprised, but always impressed by
Yes.
this group. Such a young group, but great composure, poise, mental toughness, maturity. It is off the charts. And that is why we keep saying this is such an uncommon group. And uncommon teams, well, they do uncommon things. So don't be surprised by that either. But great stuff by Oklahoma City out in Minneapolis. Now they come back to OKC for game 5, which takes place tomorrow. We're recording this on Tuesday. It is May 27th. So game 5 tomorrow, Wednesday, May 28th. What do you anticipate being the number one priority for Oklahoma City in this matchup when Minnesota, it's a do or die game for them?
Bringing it. Simple as that. I mean, that was the massive difference between games 3 and game 4. The Thunder just didn't have it in game 3. Both teams really had it. All systems go in the 48 minutes. Physicality, toughness at the point of attack, positioning, all of the little things. Jaylen Williams, I think, said it best at shoot-around prior to game 4. He said, we need to key in on all of the little things that have made us great all year. That's exactly what OKC did. You saw the pickup points that Lou Dort was making high up on the floor. Mm-hmm. You saw the physicality that J-Dub was playing with on post-ups by Julius Randle. You saw the timing and the collaboration, getting matchups back and forth on off the ball when the Thunder was trying to get set and matched. And then you saw the offense just continue to play with great trust and hum. All of that stuff needs to be amped up to an even higher level as Minnesota is going to be coming in here desperate to save their season. Yeah, and we also saw the Thunder winning every 50-50 ball. It felt like out in Minneapolis in game 4 as well. Those sort of scrappy, hustle, energy plays that gives you some life, that gives you some momentum. And the Thunder gonna need all of that energy in game 5 back here right inside of Paycom Center. That is what's brewing for this group right here in the near future. An opportunity to close out this series against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. But that wraps us up here on today's episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.